So I've been able during this quiet month of August to do a lot of reading, and I love biographies. So one of the biographies I was able to read in its entirety was the book by Walter Isaacson, the biography of Leonardo da Vinci, which came out a year or two ago. Magnificent biography in terms of writing and in terms of analysis of the works and the man himself. As you may know, this is the 500th anniversary this year of his death, and there are exhibitions around the world at the Louvre, and I think he has his painting of St. Jerome currently at the Met. So it's fascinating, and one of the themes that he was enthralled with, among so many, he was such a polymath, was this notion of microcosm, macrocosm, that the outer world or the upper world mirrored the lower world or the inner world. It's pretty well known in mystical circles, but it was especially coming out during the Renaissance, when humanity, man, so to speak, the human race was finding its place in the cosmos, in a new sense of itself, and reflecting the upper and the lower and the inner and the outer. And he was enthralled with this notion, and it came out in his painting, which I didn't realize. So they have magnificent reproductions. I mean, this is a pretty good reproduction of the reproduction, So I mean, the book is really great. So just to take his most famous painting, arguably his most famous painting, the Mona Lisa. One way he expressed this was he would have both accurate and fantastical together landscapes in the background of his portraits. And as you probably know, that's particularly true of the Mona Lisa. But what the author pointed out very well is this notion that the outer and the inner, and the human and the upper and lower worlds are together, is mirrored in some of what he did. So you can check this out for yourself later. But so you have the water and the mountains and the air in the back, air around the realm of the head, and there's a horizon on her left side, which seems to be going right into her head. But especially on that same right side, there's water and then a bridge, and then the bridge seems to go right down across the scarf and into her shoulder. And on the other side, on her right side, there's a road that goes down and seems to go right into her heart, into her thorax. So that's a very visual way in which he tried to present this notion that macrocosm, macrocosm, microcosm. Now, in medieval times in the West, you had this sense of the great chain of being, this notion that all the different realms, God, the angels, humanity, animals and plants and stones were all interconnected. This goes a little bit further than that in itself by saying that not only are they interconnected, but they reflect each other. Now, part of that comes from the esoteric tradition, which is the Hermes Trismegistus, the emerald table, as it's called, the Tabula Smaragdina, and number 2 in that list of, it turns out, 13, is that which is above is like that which is below, and that which is below is like that which is above. To accomplish the miracles of the one thing. So that's why. It's all coming from the one. Ultimate reality. And mirroring each other because it's mirroring it's all mirroring the one. It's expressed in that way. Now, the Latin that comes down to us, it says perpetranda miracula, so accomplishing the miracles. Others have it say penetranda, to penetrate the miracles of the one, okay? Or preparanda, to prepare the miracles of the one. That's all the different perspectives on the same idea. And the number 3 below it says, all things were by contemplation of the one. That's just to say the one's own contemplation. So it's by mind, the logos, if you will, mind, its own, and this is very Buddhist as well, all is mind, the Buddha mind, creates the reality, or from it comes the reality. It issues forth by the meditation of, and of course, meditazione, you also have mediazione as another reading, by the mediation of the one, but the fact that it's the actual working of the mind of the one, it makes it, I think is more interesting. So all things arose from this one thing by a single act of adaptation, adaptazione, or adopzione, by adoption. All right, so everything is like the child or the offspring of the one. So that's an interesting way of putting it, that goes all the way back to BC, so to speak, with these tables. This famous emerald table. Something similar appears in the Gospel of Thomas, which is Gnostic or not. It's very beautiful in many places, and Logion 22 has this, and this goes a little bit further. Then, when you are able to make two become one, right? So the one becomes two, and the many, but the many go back to the one as well. So the two become one, and that's the challenge, to bring it all the different levels and opposites and dualities back to the one. When you are able to make two become one, the inside like the outside, and the outside like the inside, the higher like the lower, so that, and then there are a few other things, so that man is no longer male, nor a woman female, but male and female become a single whole. Well, that's pretty modern, okay, and very Jungian as well, anima animus, bringing together. And then a few other things which we won't go into now. Then you will enter into the kingdom, enter into reality. So those are all ways of saying that there's an interconnection between the different levels of reality, and your inside and the outside and the upper and the lower, and that by contemplation of the one, you can enter in and join those together again, which is what we're doing in our sitting. Now, from a Buddhist point of view, there are several ways we can approach this. I also just finished a marvelous autobiography by Harold Talbot, whom I hadn't heard of, but it turns out he's one of the original and foremost American practitioners of Tibetan Buddhism. He was the one who accompanied Thomas Merton to visit the Dalai Lama in 1968. He has a fascinating life, but he just turned 80 and decided to write his first book. Harold Talbot. As I was saying, I was saying to someone, I think maybe that's what I'll do. I'll wait till I'm 80 until I write my first book too. Meanwhile, I have all these other things. The book is called Tendrel, which is a Tibetan term meaning interconnectedness of all things, and particularly interconnectedness of people who are related in the Dharma. So it's a very beautiful title and a very beautiful concept. But it also means we're all together, we're all one. It's basically the same ideas right there. But one of the ways that Buddhism deals with this is the three bodies of the Buddha. And Harold, through his own Rinpoche, has some additional reflections on that. So you have the Dharmakaya, which is the ultimate, absolute, one, eternal Buddha. And then on the lowest level, on the material level, you have the Nirmanakaya, which is the earthly body of the Buddha Shakyamuni, but not just his, all of us. And as he pointed out, Harold, it's not just that either, it's everything. Trees, flowers, that's manifestation of the body of the Buddha. We would say also it's the body of Christ who fills the whole universe. So on the material level, see, the upper and the lower are reflecting each other and are in fact not just reflecting each other, but are one reality. At different levels of consciousness and awareness and of being. Consciousness and being. And then in between, as you probably know, there's what's called the Sambhogakaya, which means the bliss body. So you can see how that corresponds to Christ, you know, the eternal Christ, the resurrected Christ, the earthly Christ. But for the Buddha, the bliss body are for example, Avalokita, the various Bodhisattvas and the various Buddha manifestations like Manjusri, the wisdom Buddha, or the compassion Buddha, Avalokiteshvara. So that's just what the manifestation is at this certain level of consciousness. You know, so the highest level, then you go through the different levels of light, the different levels of consciousness, and then down to the level of materiality, and they're all interrelated, all interconnected. In fact, as we see with Manjusri's lion that he's always riding, with every golden hair reflecting every other golden hair, and as modern science indicates too, it's holographic. Everything on every level reflects everything else on every other level, on every level. So not only are they interrelated and they're all one, but they all reflect each other constantly. And they're all connected and all ultimately one. Mm-hmm. So that's one way, especially in the Tibetan school, with these different manifestations which you visualize and you meditate on. That's one way to realize it, wake up to it, become aware of it. Mm. Now in Zen, as always, Zen is a little bit more immediate and a little more radical, a little bit more, less dependent on such imagery. So, for example, let's just take two quick koans that beautifully express this notion. One of my favorite, which is the 60th one in the Blue Cliff Record, has Yunmen, another one of my favorite masters, Yunmen holding up his staff to the assembled monks and saying, "This staff has become a dragon and has swallowed up the universe. Where are the mountains and the rivers and the great earth now?" So he's basically saying that the staff, or the tree, or the flower, or you, or he, are the dragon, the dragon, that has swallowed up the whole universe. It's all interconnected and it's all one. You can enter at any point, and it's all one. So where are the mountains and the rivers and the great earth now? Swallowed up? Well, yes and no. They're swallowed up if you wake up to the interconnectedness of everything, but also they're right here. The bodies aren't swallowed up. I mean, you can still live on that level. Emptiness is form, and form is emptiness, and they're not going to swallow each other up. You know the famous story of, the famous saying of Dogen, the great 13th century master, who said, you know, in the beginning, you know, mountains are just mountains. Then when you wake up, well, the mountains aren't mountains anymore. I mean, they're the dragon, they're the whole thing. But after that, they're mountains again. They keep their reality, but you just see that they're all interconnected. They don't vanish. They're not swallowed up definitively. That's just a stage in the understanding and the evolution of your own awareness. But they're all interconnected, and everything is everything. There's just the dragon, which is the symbol of wholeness and enlightenment, which you are, and the whole universe is, and your staff is. And if you think about it, or if you just realize it, as I did this morning, that's really the enlightenment of the Buddha himself, Shakyamuni, as it's reported. He woke up and he said, he saw the morning star, it's like the staff, which is the dragon, and he said, I and the great earth and all beings have achieved the way. I and the great earth and all beings, mountains, rivers, and things, it's all the dragon, it's all connected, it's all one. Inner and outer, above and below, and everything reflects everything else. So it goes beyond just saying, wow, the outer is like the inner and the above is like below. It's saying everything reflects everything, and it's all one. That's what we have to wake up to. And I close with one of the two favorite quotes that I've quoted many times before, because they're both facing opposite each other on my bookshelf at home. The two watercolors and calligraphies by Roshi and Amy. One is another quote from Dogen, which says, the true person is not any individual, but like the blue color of the vast blue sky, everyone, everywhere in the world. So you are everyone and everything. Buddha, Christ, you, everything and everyone. Then the other quote from the Upanishads, which is about an eagle soaring, which is what we're doing here, saying, this little heart of ours, this inner thing, contains so much. It contains the sun, the moon, and the stars, the winds, the lightning, thunder, everything that ever was and everything that was not. So that's how much the inner and the outer and the above and below are the same. This heart contains the universe. This one thing, like the staff, is the dragon and the whole universe. So I guess Mona Lisa just needs to wake up to the fact that she's actually everything, not just the bridge or the river or the road. Maybe Leonardo saw that too, but we better.